Greetings, humans. This is Damon Foley speaking to you. I'm feeling rather greedy lately.
And greedy for more Trekyards. You mean Captain? I mean Damon?
No, petty human. Greedy for gold-pressed platinum, wealth, and naked females.
Okay, sorry everyone. Either I've crossed into a really weird, disturbing, and weird, two words, parallel universe, or it seems the Captain has come down with some sort of strange affliction. He thinks he's a Ferengi. This is a problem.
Sorry about that, Commander. I've been researching our new ship and perhaps experienced some subliminal messaging in one or two of the files I accessed from the Ferengi mainframe. This episode is being done by the request of Brian Perkins, one of our Indiegogo backers, as part of your Pick Your Own Ship perk. He requested the Ferengi Decora-class Marauder, and we, of course, are very happy to oblige. So let's get into it, as I am eager to finish this up and get me some umaks from my wife.
Right. Anyway, thank you for your support, Brian. The Ferengi Marauder was designed by a very good friend, Andrew Probert, and as with most of the ships we examine, has a few size problems in canon. We discovered sizes of both 366 metres, 390 metres, all the way up to 630 metres long, which is only 12 metres shorter than the Enterprise D. Wow. That sounds too big to me. The main accepted size of the ship seems to be the 366 metre. It's reflected in most of the stuff we found, but for fun, and because we're Trekyards, we contacted Andrew and asked, what he said. And he had said initially he wanted the ship to be 1,200 feet long, which works out to be 365 metres. Well, 365.76 metres in length. He also stated he always does his ship measurements in feet and always even numbers.
Indeed, very cool little insight directly from the man himself.
Yeah.
I really do love working on Trekyards for that very reason. So guys, you can decide for yourself what the length is, but I am inclined to believe the ship's designer, as well as around 90% of the other sources that I discovered, and go with the slightly rounded up length of 366 meters. Perhaps the other measurements were for different ships in the Ferengi fleet, and people just got confused as to what the Marauder actually is, but we will get into that soon enough. But moving right along. The ship had 33 decks and a crew of 450 male crewmen, as women were not allowed on Ferengi ships in any official capacity.
The ship's maximum speed was about warp 9.6 and standard cruising speed was warp 7. Now it's been speculated that the Ferengi first, in fact, purchased their warp technology rather cheaply from a more advanced race yet unknown, but is strongly believed and speculated to be the Breen, due in large part to the book Legends of the Ferengi, authored by Ira Stephen Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolfe. However, this is not official canon, but does make a lot of sense, and it's a great read.
Yeah, this vessel is referred to by several different classifications, including warship, armored transport by the Federation, and as an attack vessel by the Ferengi themselves. However, its primary function was as a trade vessel. During the early 2360s, Starfleet had almost no specific data on the Decora, with the first contact of the vessel of this class happening in the TNG episode The Last Outpost in 2364. Upon first seeing the ship, Captain Picard stated that it was indeed a most impressive design. Then, by the time the movie First Contact came around, Starfleet possessed a general knowledge of Ferengi technology, and it was estimated to be generally equal to, but not identical to, Federation tech.
The specific design was known as the Decora class, and this class made up the majority of the Ferengi fleet. It seems early on the term Marauder was a collective term for any of the larger Ferengi-type designs. In fact, the term Marauder was never actually said on TNG. The Marauder, or the name Marauder, was first mentioned actually by Nog in the DS9 episode Little Green Men, when he refers to them as Marauder-class cruisers. In the Voyager episode Inside Man, there's an L-class display which says a ship with the designation Decora-class Marauder, so I guess it was definitely post-TNG, filling in the blanks, as it were.
Okay, let's move on with the weapons now, shall we? The armaments of this vessel include torpedo launchers, as well as older-style missile launchers, directed energy weapons, also referred to as plasma emitters or directed shock emitters, and an aft electromagnetic pulse weapon, which was frequently used to damage or slow down an enemy as the Ferengi retreated, as they often ran away from many of their encounters. The plasma emitters were located in the claws or pincers at the front of the ship, and the directed shock emitters are actually the orange glowing things that we see on the very front of the ship. Yeah, right here. Those things.
Oh, mine don't glow.
Well, there you go. That's what they are. Now, the torpedo and more primitive missile launchers are located at the top of the ship, right up here, in a retractable weapons turret located in front of the range bridge module, as well as in the very front center portion of the ship. The very unique electromagnetic pulse weapon was emitted from the rear of the craft and was detectable by a marked power surge just prior to discharge. The resulting electromagnetic pulse was capable of weakening the shields of a Galaxy-class vessel, as well as depleting fusion generators and batteries by as much as 30% in a single burst.
That is very impressive. I wonder what alien race they brought that technology off. Perhaps the Breen again, because we all know that later in DS9 the Breen have some very advanced energy dampening weapons. So maybe that even seems more likely when you consider the Breen are in fact the direct neighbours to the Ferengi.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense actually, as the Breen are also a very mysterious species that we know very little about. So I think a Trekyards episode on their ships in the future should prove most interesting.
In case when the Marauder's daemon was forced to surrender, the ship would actually extend its neck and open or lower all the ship's weapon ports, such as the lower claws-like emitters, as well as expose other sensitive areas. This posture was also sometimes viewed as a preparation to attack. Very different there. This is only seen in the one episode, however, their first appearance to Last Outpost, when the ship surrendered to the Enterprise. As we learned from Andrew Probert, this position was designed by him to be a way for the ship to be serviced or have weapons replaced. The physical model did indeed articulate in this way, but doing so actually broke many of the interior neon light effects, and so was barely actually seen split second in the episode. For all future appearances of the model, this feature was never used again.
The ship was designed with a lower visible boarding ramp as well as a smaller auxiliary craft, very similar to the Voyager's unused Aero shuttle or the Enterprise's captain's yacht. Yours
is way better than mine.
I know, because I built it and painted it.
I know, it's way more detailed. Sorry.
We're going to get into that a little bit later. This could, of course, be seen on the underside of the ship, but was never used, and very little is known about this ship's capabilities. But what I did learn was that it was about 88 meters in length and was a drop ship named the Spirit of Opportunity.
It seems that in later years, the ship was not only used by the Ferengi military, but also Ferengi liquidators and privateers. This was due mainly to its many different configurations that were possible from this very versatile space frame. It was relatively easy to mount phasers, disruptors, as well as very strong torpedo-based weaponry without much modification to the mounting points.
As with many of these privateers, the main job of the Daemon was to acquire as much profit and wealth for himself and his crew as possible. If he failed to do so, he would almost certainly be removed from command. While this acquisition of wealth, by any means necessary, was never officially sanctioned by the Ferengi governing body, it was known to happen sometimes by rather unscrupulous means. And a blind eye was usually turned in that direction by the Ferengi military officials, assuming that the bribes were substantial enough. However, if an official complaint was made to the Ferengi government by another large governing body, such as the Federation, the Daemon was indeed investigated and sometimes removed from his position and left to recover from this very public disgrace. This, of course, prevented the Ferengi from stepping on the wrong toes, so to speak, and getting involved in any major conflicts, which, of course, is best for business, after all. Better to be on relatively good terms with everyone, and you can just go virtually unnoticed.
The main bridge has an isolated, centrally located chair for the Daemon, which emphasised his importance. In fact, it was the only chair located on the entire bridge, and had only had controls for communications. The bridge was also much more compact than Federation, or almost every other alien style, and had fewer permanent crew. Only 5 separate and distinct stations were present, with the 4 two-duty stations being generally unmanned. Which is weird since it's got 450 people crew, but oh well. The main control was a dome-like interface located directly behind the Daemon's chair. It could accommodate up to 3 persons. And the last 2 stations flanked the main bridge door, which was usually locked.
The ship routinely carried at least 2 small shuttlecraft known as Entrepreneur's Treasure, warp shuttles. These were large enough to accommodate 5 to 6 passengers and were similar in size and performance to smaller Federation personnel shuttles. With a top speed of around warp 6, we see one like this as Quark's personal shuttle in the DS9 episode Little Green Men, named Quark's Treasure. The ship also carried a few smaller 2 to 3 person pods called Pods of Acquisition. These pods were very bug-like in appearance, with the earwig-type pincers on the front. Since the ship's primary use was as a trade vessel, it did contain a large number of cargo areas and numerous tractor beam emitters used in the salvaging of derelict vessels.
The ship's overall design was inspired by a horseshoe crab and an earwig, and was the very first of all the new alien ships we saw in TNG. Andrew Probert wanted the ship to look threatening and fairly dangerous, with the front claws being designed to look like pincers similar to those of an earwig.
The physical model was built by Greg Jean and incorporated various railroad model parts and some pinstriping tape to add additional detail to the hull. As mentioned earlier, this model articulated to show the servicing posture, but this feature was only used the one time. The model was used various times in TNG, but when it came time to see one in Voyager, Since mainly CGI models were being used, a new CGI version of the Marauder was designed and built by Brandon McDougall for the episode Inside Man. For this project, the original physical model was sent to his office so that he could make as detailed and accurate version in CG as possible.
Nice. And now it's time to welcome on Andrew Probert, the one and only. We got him for this show just for a bit, because obviously we'll talk to him later for a full designing episode. So, welcome everyone, Andrew Probert.
All right, so first thing I got to do, I got to show you my Marauder model that I made. I added copper and gold highlights to it, and I kind of wanted your opinion on that, what you thought about adding the highlights, because I thought the copper with the rust color looked really good.
Well, that's good that you thought that.
What's your view on it? How, would you have done that?
No.
Oh.
No, it's a dark rust, flat rust color. It's not meant to be spotted by sunlight glinting off of those panels. It's meant to kind of blend into the background as much as possible.
I just figured they're Ferengi, like their gold pressed platinum, and their shininess. So
Only in their pockets.
yeah, okay, fair enough.
Their cargo holds, but
yeah.
So, what was your favorite detail? The one favorite detail of the design that you can remember, and then how do you think the ship ends up looking on screen? And did you ever see the physical film model or the film miniature, I should say? And how do you think of how that turned out?
that's a really interesting question. I don't remember actually seeing the miniature.
Oh.
I've seen a lot of pictures of it, obviously, but I don't know if that was all done at ILM, because Image G was real close. I could have run over there to check it out. Isn't that weird? I never thought about that, but no, I don't think I've ever seen it physically. My favorite detail on it is the one that nobody knows about, and that is the drop ship, which is tucked up under the neck. It would probably hold, I don't know, probably about 12 to 15 people at the most. But, Gene's original description of the Ferengi were that they were supposed to be the new bad guys of Star Trek. They were supposed to be very into money, pirating, kind of slick deal kind of things. It was a raider, and the idea was that they would pirate other ships, basically, if they thought they had the advantage, or planetary systems. So the dropship was designed to pop out of the mothership and go down and attack little villages or gold colonies or whatever. It was put there as a contingency, and whenever I do that, they never use them. Also, there's a boarding ramp under the nose. There's the nose is these two pinchers, and between those, on the underside, there's a boarding ramp. So the idea is that the top of that section would slide back. The boarding ramp would actually pierce into a ship that they're raiding, and basically physically clamp onto that, and then they would burn a hole. That would be an extendable ramp, and then they would burn a hole through that and go through and take all their booty. But none of those things were actually used. They're on the model for sure. They look really great on the model, thanks to Greg Gene and his group. But
so I have two quick questions about that dropship then.
okay.
First of all, did it have a large cargo hold, which I imagine it would? And secondly, it was intended obviously to be used a lot more than a captain's yacht, let's say.
And when I say a capacity of 12 to 15, that's without the gold.
Oh, okay.
Capacity 1 with the gold. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
We never got that far, and it's logical that you would only create something for an episode that was actually written.
Do you think the dropship was actually warp capable, or limited to in-system attacks?
Yeah. Just in-system attacks.
Very good. Now, something else we discussed earlier was the fact that the ship was designed for the neck to extend out and the weapons to lower, and the physical model was built to do that. They showed it once, I think, the first time they used it, and then it was never used again. Was that an attack posture or the surrendering posture like they used it as?
It was actually a servicing posture. It was basically like if you opened up the cowling on an engine to service it, right? You're exposing your innards. So basically the neck didn't actually extend to any great degree. It just parted enough to get down into the critical systems.
Okay.
So same with the weapons, and there was a sonic weapon up on top, and then the two down on the lower wingtips.
And I guess finally, how did you think the Marauder ended up looking on screen? Either its first appearance or even way later in its many DS9 appearances?
I thought they did a great job. It looked good. Again, the problem with their effects people is they don't know how to shoot anything that really denotes scale. So the Marauder was actually much larger on screen. It's about 1,400 feet long. But the scale varied. It was like King Kong. The scale varied whenever little what's her name was running around. But I had that problem with all of their miniature photography. And I brought it up, and it's like, well, the scale is way off. This ship should not be this big. If you want the galaxy to look as big as it really is, you got to have these ships in scale to it. Well, you can't see them. It's like, excuse me. It's like I've seen pictures, World War II pictures of the entire Pacific Fleet, and you can see all of those ships. Not well, but you can see that they're there. So, don't give me that. Come to someone who knows, like me, and say, how big is this supposed to be, so that I can shoot it in scale. That would never occur to them.
That's exactly. Well, it's great that you put all this thought into the design process, and we love that. So thank you very much, Andrew, for jumping in on this episode with us, and we will talk to you again soon about the Marauder.
Now onto the discussion. I like how organic the ship is. Gentle curves, and yet some very aggressive lines. When I first saw it on screen, well, honestly, I can't remember my first thoughts about it, but I remember always linking the ship to how silly the Ferengi were. And given the limited amount of information we had about the ship, I never really gave it much credit. Times move on, and now I do a show about ships, so I've had to re-examine many of the ships I really hadn't thought much of. The Marauder, well, I love the detailing, okay? The auxiliary shuttle, in particular, is awesome. I think it adds something really special to the bottom, and overall the ship's really grown on me, and especially talking to Andrew, I do appreciate it quite a lot more.
Yeah, to be honest, this has always been one of my guilty pleasure ships. Pleasure ship. It's a ship I always really liked the looks of, but never really saw much of, so I assumed that no one really liked it. So I was always hesitant to mention it, my love for the overall design. But like I said, I think it's a great looking ship. I had the good fortune to get the Adversary model kit free from a good friend of mine, and this kit included the Romulan Dideridex, Klingon Bird of Prey, and of course, the Ferengi Marauder, as we see here. Now this kit I had seen for numerous years, but never wanted to shell the money out for it, but I really should have. I mean, I really enjoyed painting this ship in the colors that I thought it always would look good in. Here's the model, see? And as you can see, it's a little bit different color than Samuel's.
Yeah, mine's the Eagle Moss one.
Yeah. The overall color was rust, and I used copper and gold highlights to really make those parts pop. So I think it's pretty cool looking, and to be honest, one of my favorite finished Star Trek models built by me. Ironically enough, as I researched this episode, I learned that railroad model parts were used to detail the hull, and I in fact used a rust-colored paint specifically made for model railroad train weathering as the main hull color for this ship. So I found that pretty interesting. I painted the train parts with a train rust color without even knowing it.
Screen accurate, almost.
In fact, there are a few of my earlier YouTube videos that highlight the build of this kit. So go ahead, scroll back through my older videos, and you can watch the build progress if you want. And if I don't forget, I'll try to include a link in the description below Samuel. Samuel, point down.
Yeah, down there. Not, yeah, done.
Yeah, anyway. That's it for me for now.
So on to what we don't like. I don't like how it was presented in the show to be the same size as the Galaxy class. Now I know you could say it's the perspective of the shot, but that was clearly part of the intention to, yeah. The size makes no sense for a trading vessel, given the Galaxy class being a long-term family exploration vessel. It just doesn't link up. Especially given every person on board the Ferengi is meant to be all about profit, and as we've seen, not above selling each other out. It's not a really good work environment for that big of a ship. I always thought the ship, however, could work on a much smaller scale, so the 366 meters makes it feel makes me feel a lot more comfortable about the design, and I think it just fits better into my own personal headcanon. It's not one of my favourites just aesthetically, but that being said, I think I would have liked it a lot more if it'd been fleshed out more. If we got a chance to see the interiors, perhaps if they did an officer swap program like they did with the Riker and the Klingon, they really got to show us the interior Bird of Prey. That, but for Ferengi would have been really cool, would have been much more real. Come on, I think TNG writers from 20 years ago, get on that. And come on, guys, you should have used the Soul Shuttle. Come on. Anyway.
I know, it's like the unused Aero Shuttle from Voyager. What? Anyway, I don't really like the underutilization of the model in the show. It would have been cool to see more of the ship or even different variations on screen. Even to be able to see more of the interior would have been neat, like you said. I'm not really a Ferengi fan, but this is a ship I can really get behind and enjoy. Also, really disappointing that we didn't get to see more of the articulation of the neck and the claw emitters, as that is a really cool feature of the ship design that Andrew put a lot of thought into. But other than that, I think it's pretty fantastic. I mean, the horseshoe crab and earwig influence make it sort of creepy looking and off-putting in a way, but that was the overall intent by Andrew, so I really don't think that's a bad thing. So yeah, not much I really don't like, guys.
Yeah. And that is it for another fan-requested ship. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you're happy as well, Brian. Thanks, Brian. It's a great ship, and a great ship to add to our ever-growing lineup of Trek spaceships and stations sometimes. And we definitely enjoyed putting this episode together for you guys, and especially you, Brian, but also you guys, the whole of you, all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorites, so thanks again for suggesting it, Brian. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Please give that like button a click, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So, do you have a favorite ship, station, or piece of tech from Star Trek that you like, not you, Samuel, the fans out there, that you would like to see us do in an episode for? If so, please email us at trekyards@hotmail.com, and we will be in touch with you to let you know what you need to do to get us working on your own personal episode. All it takes is a small donation, which will help us with our time in creating this content for you. Or if you simply enjoy the show and wish to contribute, head on over to trekyards.com and click the donate button to help us continue to bring you new and exciting shows every single week. And while you're there, feel free to watch any of our past episodes, as we have a huge library of great content for you all to enjoy. All right, this is Captain Foley.
And Commander Coggins.
Signing off until next week. See you later, guys.
Right.